Welcome back to our 32 for 32 NFL preview series. This is the Goal Line Stand, and we are talking Arizona Cardinals. We are in the National Football Conference, Brett. We have left the American, and we make our way to our home conference, the NFC, and we are out west. Arizona Cardinals had an interesting year a year ago. Kliff Kingsbury, who, by the way, living a very nice life. I know we discussed that on our draft wrap-up show, that he had maybe one of the best setups as far as the draft goes, maybe outside of Bill Belichick's dog.
Yeah, it was a pretty nice setup. I think someone actually interviewed him, and he's like, he wanted to find the room that was most over the top to make it even look that way.
So, good for him. So he knew
he knew exactly what he was doing, yeah. But I think it also showed, like, some of the coaches, had 5 computer screens and everything. He had like one tiny little like Microsoft Surface. We're not sponsored by Microsoft either, but just throwing that out there.
Yeah, no, but they want to throw some shekels our way. We'll take that as well.
Exactly.
But that's all you need. You have the NFL Network, like I have on my TV here to my left, and a Surface, which I actually do have here. No, we didn't, anyway. But yeah, no. So they had an interesting year a year ago. Kyler Murray arrived on the scene, and I got to tell you, very impressed with him. I actually thought he was going to be a baseball guy, but I was impressed with him as a quarterback. Not that
so you're a baseball guy. How good was he? How good is he in baseball?
Very good baseball player. I thought he might go the baseball route simply for the guaranteed dollars.
Yeah.
You're guaranteed he would have signed a very lucrative contract right from go with Oakland, and whether he would have made the team or not, he would have had, I'm going to say, $3 to $5 million in pocket right away. But he parlayed it into an NFL career. He obviously got a lot of money off his rookie deal, and he'll make a lot of money down the road.
I know this isn't a baseball podcast, but just one question to follow it up. I mean, I know top prospects in baseball, it's still not necessarily a given that they're going to get to the majors, correct?
Right.
It's not, for instance, so he was the first pick of the draft. He had about a $30 to $35 million guaranteed contract.
Right.
So in a way, it'd be like if he was a late first round pick, maybe economically it would have made more sense to go baseball. But given that he became the first pick of the draft,
once he climbed up the NFL draft board, there was no chance of him going baseball. That became clear as day once he got up that high, and you're getting $30 million. I mean, that's better than traveling around. Well, not even this year. He wouldn't even be in the minors this year. He'd be sitting at home doing nothing.
Yeah. So, by the way, I'm sure the Cardinals would appreciate that you've dressed in their colors.
I did that on purpose. There's a lot of red in the NFC West, and I figured that this would work well. I can't wear Seahawks colors because fuck Pete Carroll. So let's get on to it. Let's get on to it. The Arizona Cardinals, 2019, 5-10-1, 4th place in the NFC West. You always love to see a nice -1 in a schedule, in a standings. Good old tie in the NFL. Hopefully they knew the rules going into overtime.
I knew you were going to mention that good old Donovan McNabb. What was that, against the Bengals?
Yeah, that was against the Bengals. Oh God, that had to be over a decade ago now. Obviously.
Oh yeah.
But
I don't remember which year.
I didn't know the game could end in a tie. That's good. That's great.
Well, look,
that's part of the problem. This isn't an Eagles thing, but that's a part of the problem. It's been always Donovan's an Arizona guy. That's always been part of the problem with Donovan McNabb, is that he just stuff like that. Like, I don't know, he's probably trying to be funny, and it comes off as being idiotic.
Well, I also would say that's one of the problems of overtime football in the NFL. Why they can't adopt something akin to the college and even high school system is beyond me, but we'll get to that. One of our main Goal Line Stand podcasts at GL Stand Show. social media platforms. Anyways, into the acquisitions of the Cardinals. I think in a way that obviously the biggest name there, and this is, we talked about this a little bit, actually a lot of bit. No, that's not the term, but we talked about the Houston Texans. The Cardinals were able to acquire arguably the best wide receiver in the league for not very much compensation, getting DeAndre Hopkins. I think this was a tremendous, tremendous pickup for the Cardinals. I mean, look, this offense, this is Kingsbury runs the air raid offense essentially, or a version of it. And they're going to be throwing the ball a lot. You would obviously like to have one of the best wide receivers in the game, particularly when you look at that wide receiver group. Larry Fitzgerald, a first ballot Hall of Famer, but at this stage, I think he only has 1 or 2 years left. I think COVID might extend his career one more year. Maybe he'd like to play in a regular, normal season, amongst fans for his last season. But anyways, either way, he's no longer the top gun. They drafted Christian Kirk, decent player, but I think DeAndre Hopkins really makes that a dangerous group. Devondre, they picked up 2 good linebackers here, and Devondre Campbell. It's more of an active middle linebacker type. And Devon Kennard, formerly, he was actually a 4th-round pick of the Giants back 2013, 2014. Good edge rusher if he could stay healthy. His father, Mike, do you remember I forget his first name right now. Do you remember the big offensive lineman for the Cowboys, last name Kennard, during their heyday? That with the Aikman-Irvin run when we were little?
I do not.
Gigantic. He was a gigantic guard who played opposite Nate Newton. He won a few Super Bowls with them. That's his father. His first name's escaping me right now. But anyways, just throwing that, using connections, whatever.
Derek Kennard.
Thank you, Derek. Because I thought I knew it was with
former Arizona Cardinal, New Orleans Saint, and Cowboy.
It's funny. I don't remember. I just remember with the Cowboy. He was a gigantic man. Devin is far slimmer. No offense to the father. When he is healthy, he is a good football player, and he really, if healthy, can get you about 8 sacks a season, and that's a nice edge rusher. Then they got 2 decent defensive tackles. I think Jordan Phillips is the more notable name of the 2. Going to the departures, you have South Jersey's own Jameer Byrd. Charles Clay, his game has kind of fallen off. He really made a name for himself when he was in Buffalo. Didn't really contribute as much as they had hoped with the Cardinals. Plus, I think, the tight end position in the air raid, again, depending upon the coach, it sometimes is not heavily utilized. Pharoh Cooper, he has sort of bounced around. He was here and also the LA Rams. Obviously, David Johnson was part of the DeAndre Hopkins trade. This is, and we talked about this when we went over with the Texans, just a very strange case. This was a guy who looked like he was ascending to be one of, if not the top running back in the league, and his game just fell off a cliff after an injury. Again, there could be issues regarding fit with respect to, running back style in the air raid.
I don't think he fits the current system.
No,
as far as how Kingsbury runs it, but right, we talked about it when we discussed Houston, just right off the cliff, like the coyote, and in a Roadrunner, the coyote just goes off the cliff and.
It's funny, even though it was underwater, when you think of like off the cliff, I always remember that scene in the movie The Abyss when what was it? Ed Harris had to go get the nuke and he had to go all the way down. Never mind. It's just, to me, that's what it was a cliff, but underwater. But anyways,
not like Godzilla and King Kong rolling off the cliff together. Never mind.
Yeah. Okay. And then AQ Shipley. I kind of liken him to Stefan Wisniewski. I always view them as like one and the same. Just kind of like these tough interior offensive linemen who like just never seem to find one steady home, and are always just moving around. And Joe Walker is kind of a limited middle linebacker, so I think they upgraded with Devondre Campbell. Their opt out was very big. Marcus Gilbert, who was slated to be their starting right offensive tackle. So even though they only had one opt-out, the fact that it was a starting right tackle is definitely significant.
Let's get back to the wide receiver pickup in DeAndre Hopkins. How huge is that for Kyler Murray as a weapon? Not to say he didn't have weapons before, but now you have arguably one of the best receivers in the game today, if not the best. Changes the whole thing.
Oh, because it changes in so many different ways. You now have an ultra reliable receiver. This guy only dropped like 2 catches in the past several seasons. On top of it, he's so good, he is going to command special coverages his way. So it opens up everything else in the offense. You know, he's a special talent. And I know we're talking a lot about the Houston Texans. I think he's the kind of talent where you make it work. There's never really been reports of him being a malcontent.
No, not at all.
In the locker room. So what were the issues? Either way, the Arizona Cardinals successfully fleeced the Texans, and they made themselves a whole lot better.
Absolutely. Let's take a look at their draft. And what do you think here? There's some picks here that I like. It was a little bit ho-hum, but you're building depth here. I mean, we talk about it. That's what the draft is for. It wasn't home runs, so to speak, but it's okay.
I like this draft. I think a lot of times when people will recap drafts, sometimes they get more enamored with drafts where a team has had 8, 9, 10 picks, teams that have acquired a lot of picks. But for a 6-person draft, I actually think this is really good. I thought they got some exceptional value. Isaiah Simmons off the top. This is I'm not going to call it a boom or bust pick, but this really could be a special pick. And we talked a lot about him in the mock draft show. He is perhaps the most athletic linebacker prospect to come out of college perhaps ever. I mean, the guy ran like a 4.38 at 6'4", in the high 230s. He literally can line up at so many different positions. You've now just acquired like the ultimate chess piece, the ultimate. And I know this is a baseball term, like in baseball, it sort of means like an average mid-league player. But what I mean is in a utility player, in that he could just do so many different things. I mean, obviously he's listed as a linebacker. He can play all the different linebacking positions. He could additionally play slot corner, both safety positions. To draft that in the top 10, that's pretty amazing. And I think, he just provides them so much versatility in terms of personnel packages. It's really, to me, I think it's a great pick. Some people, and I even ponder this, is he, sort of good at everything, master at nothing? I don't know. I still think that he has time to develop all of those various skills. So it should be really interesting, but I think it was a great piece to add. That 3rd round pick, Josh Jones, I had him mocked in the 1st round, and so did many others who are far more credentialed than I am. And particularly now, given the fact that Marcus Gilbert is out, he's going to slide in and play right tackle right away, I think. Then in the 4th round, I think they added great depth along the defensive for defensive tackles with Lecky Fotu and Richard Lawrence, both very productive defensive tackles in their respective teams. And speaking of production, I think Evan Weaver from California led Division I FBS in tackles last year. He was literally like, Bobby Boucher would say, tackling machine. He was really good. And I also am really high on Eno Benjamin. I liked him a lot from Arizona State. Isn't it, by the way, weird? Arizona always seems to draft Arizona State guys. And this is even beyond Pat Tillman. There's always been a steady and not even Arizona. It's always Arizona State guys.
Because, I would think because in the past they were literally in the same place.
Yeah. So what? Now, back in the day, stadium familiarity?
I don't know. Ease of accessibility, perhaps?
I'm sure there's something to that.
And now, since you have the Fighting Herm Edwards, you got a bunch of you have a legit Not that say that other college coaches aren't legit, but you could go to Herm Edwards and say, Herm, what do you got here?
Well, yeah, and I think that's really one of the appeals now for Arizona State from a college perspective from recruiting is that they have not only him, Marvin Lewis, they have Antonio Pierce, they have what's his name, the Hall of Fame center, Kevin Mawai is he's a consultant of the team. You're now getting coached up by pro level guys,
Right.
so you should be more pro ready. But I really like Benjamin. I think he really provides good depth. So you got, the top 2 picks, very interesting starters. Josh Jones really saves you. You got tremendous value. That's a 3rd-round pick. Most people thought was going to be a 1st-round pick. And then you got a lot of depth behind that and quality depth. So, all in all, a solid draft for 6 picks.
Before we get into our 4 questions for the Cardinals, round 4 pick there, Lecky Flo 2. Any relation to The Rock and Roman Reigns? Is he part of that lineage? Is he going to be a professional wrestler?
I don't know. I think he is Hawaiian as opposed to Samoan. That I believe. I don't.
Excited. It's like I saw the name. You never know.
Hey, look, I am. Polynesian players are some of the toughest, most physical guys out there, and I'm always a fan of getting them. Hardest workers, strong, physical. They always, even the ones who don't wow you, they seem to stick in the league for 10 years.
It's your rule of thumb. You always used to say it. If you can get a Polynesian player on the team, they're going to be good for you.
I'm very pro Polynesian.
Yeah. Let's get it. 4 key questions for the Cardinals in 2020. We kind of talked about it a little bit with Kyler Murray, but can Kyler Murray build off of his rookie year? Certainly a little bit easier now than it was 6 months ago.
Yeah, I definitely think so. And so much of that has to do with DeAndre Hopkins. So again, when you have him, not only are you opening up the different receiving options, you're also opening up the run game more because you're like in that kind of offense, you're never really going to have 8 in the box because it's an air raid. You have to have people cover wide receivers.
You're going to always probably be nickel from a defensive standpoint
at minimum.
There's just too much stuff going on.
Yeah, I don't think it would be a very smart strategy to just leave wide receivers uncovered. Even if they are aging, that is a very
it's
a bold strategy. Yeah. So, but no, I think Kyler Murray, he's only going to be now even more seasoned with this kind of offense. And you got to remember, Lincoln Riley back in Oklahoma ran a similar. It was a similar kind of air raid system. Everyone has sort of put their own touches on the traditional air raid, first created by was it Hal Mum? Is it Hal Mummy or Hal Mum? I forget how you pronounce it. Either way, and then made sort of more known by Mike Leach. And then that's sort of the tree of air raid. But so they all have their variations, but Kyler Murray has been used to this, but now he's getting even more used to Kingsbury style. I really think that this offense can take off.
For the offense to take off, you need to protect the quarterback.
Yeah.
Your take on the offensive line of the Cardinals. You're only as good. Your quarterback can only be as good as if he's protected. We preach on that. What's your take?
Well, so my biggest concern, and particularly now, given that Marcus Gilbert has opted out, it's depth along the offensive line. So now, before when you had Gilbert, Josh Jones made the ultimate swing. The rookie made the ultimate swing tackle. Now he's pressed into starting duty. If he's hurt, now the depth in the tackle positions is not as strong. Then you have one of the starting guards for the Cardinals is Justin Pugh, former first-round pick for the New York Giants. When healthy, is a good player. I wouldn't call him a Pro Bowl talent, but a good starter. The problem is he pretty much every year will be out for 2 to 6 games with some kind of nagging injury. And I don't really think that the guard depth is overly strong. I mean, they have Max Garcia, I believe came from Texas Tech, actually. So he's a Kingsbury guy. But again, not great. So one or two injuries and you have a serious problem. Whereas other teams have done a really nice job, building depth. I don't think that the Cardinals did a great job with that. They drafted Josh Jones thinking he would be a future starter, provide depth. But then because of the Marcus Gilbert opt-out, it really does, spread them pretty thin.
Yeah, it pushed forward his quote-unquote development, his time.
And I guess one other thing to think about, though, is, in the air raid system, it's not like, for instance, we talked about the Tennessee Titans and the physicality that's required in that offensive system. That's not necessarily the case with an air raid offensive line. It's just a different style.
I haven't paid too much attention to the blocking schematics. What is it? More of a zone blocking from?
Yeah, it's more of a zone blocking, and obviously, look.
Now we're getting very much into the weeds there, but
but you're not. It's not a power-based system. Even though I guess they probably have some of that built in with some of the QB option stuff and quarterback reads. But again, when you think of the offensive lines from the Washington States and the Texas Techs back in the day, it's not necessarily known for power, just blowing you off the ball. So I guess in a way, obviously that doesn't mean that the players don't have to be as good, but maybe just not quite as physical. It's almost more about maintaining your area and just not getting blown off the ball.
Let's move on to the defense here. How underrated and underappreciated is John Jones' brother?
I think the way you asked it just really shows it right
was
there.
that wrong? Should I have not done that? I'm Chandler Jones. I'm sorry.
No, I think, look, it's funny because that's how you and I, because we're avid mixed martial art fans. Also, we happen to have a combat sports podcast, In the Fight Show, at In the Fight Show, all social media platforms. But yeah, he's not talked about in the same vein as the Khalil Macks or the Aaron Donalds, or even the J.J. Watts, who I wouldn't say his game has fallen off somewhat because of the injuries. But if you look at him statistically, he's right there, and he just is not talked about. I think a little bit of it is he was shipped off to Arizona, but even when he was in New England, he was not talked, because in New England it's, well, you're in Bill Belichick's defense.
You're a piece of the cog in New England. You're not part, unless you're Tom Brady, or a Gronk. You're not a name. You're a part of the system there.
Yeah, and here it's Arizona, but guess what? Now he's putting up the same numbers, if not more, in what has been, at least until lately, a less talented defense. So I really think that he's well on his way. If he puts together 3 or 4 more of these seasons, he's a Hall of Famer.
I'm going to have to really look at his stats now, because I called him John Jones' brother. Maybe we should be talking about John Jones as Chandler Jones' brother.
And it's great for me. I also think I'm like, it's Arthur Jones' younger brother, who was a stalwart defensive tackle, first at Syracuse, then Baltimore, Indianapolis. And he's always, to me, he's been the little brother of the Jones family.
That is one hell of an athletic family. That's crazy. That's crazy right there. Let's talk about the defense. Is this a playoff defense? Meaning, if need be, can this defense carry the Arizona Cardinals?
So, I short answer, no. I don't believe that they can carry the Cardinals. Do I think they are competent enough to be to do just enough to complement a very strong offense to go to the playoffs? Yes. If does that make sense? The way
it does. So, and we're going to get to that. We'll get to that when we are done our 32 for 32 series here. We are going to have our big NFL prediction show. Join us tomorrow as we talk Los Angeles Rams. If you like this here program, throw us a subscribe, a thumbs up, a comment. Follow us on social up there in the corner at GL Stand Show. We appreciate it. Drop a question, drop a comment, and we will touch base with you. Until then, stay safe, and hey, go Cards.